Well, as you can imagine, everyone's looking forward to this this LA trip. Big challenge against the side that have been fantastic this year and worthy champions. So we're looking forward to trying to put ourselves in a position where we can test our mettle, as it were, and hopefully finish the season off on a decent note, and then look forward to what those post-season games look like. And obviously, there's plenty of different scenarios that can occur come Saturday afternoon / evening.
Thank you, Coach. We'll start with Drake Hills and then go to the Zoom. Go ahead, Drake.
Yeah, Gary, of course, with going up against LAFC at LAFC, how do you value the possibility of getting a home game in terms of how you go about setting up the team, obviously the way you guys are going to want to play on Sunday, and how much value does that home game have to you and to the team, considering that you guys have already clinched?
Yeah. I think that there's a couple of thoughts and decisions that have to be made. You get to this stage in the season, there's always some guys that have been carrying certain issues physically throughout the year, managing that. So I want to be careful to make sure that those guys are getting enough time to recover fully or to a good degree towards the postseason and playoff games. But it goes without saying that I think every team wants to go into the playoffs in a good mood, a good rhythm, up until the weekend. And I would even say that, some of the football played at the weekend was very, very decent from the guys. The result went against us, but with it been in a good run, they're in a good place mentally, and I would love to finish the season off in the very best possible way. If that takes us to a home game, then that's the cherry on the cake. But I think if we look at this as another big opportunity to prove ourselves, then my mindset and the hope is that we get the points we need to obviously finish up in one of those top 4 spots.
Here's the follow-up you mentioned, Gary, in terms of the team and balancing based off of a year's long work with Annabelle and Alex being able to train again. Does the team kind of need them, or how do you feel about including them? Are they ready to play on Sunday?
Alex is going to be a big question mark, unfortunately. Annabelle will be in a very good position to be part of the starting 11. He's trained very, very well. I'm absolutely delighted he's back in the group. And to your point, Annabelle's been a driving force in this team from day one, and to have him back in what we would consider to be a starting group is a great bonus for us as we go into the postseason games.
Just to follow up on that, if you don't mind, Matt. In terms of the road stint, right? A lot of talk about this team is how it was able to progress after the first 8 games. Does that team still exist in a way, given that chapter was the beginning of the season and you guys have had to go back and forth in a normal fashion? Do you feel like that team is still there? Do you feel like you have to kind of conjure up a new way to be able to play?
Yeah. Well, look, if you're playing 8 games away from home, you can plan for 8 difficult environments, and if need be, set up in a more frugal way. The game doesn't have to be forced as anywhere near as much as maybe you would want it to at home. The schedule for us has been unbalanced all year, so then we have a glut of home games that over a course of time you've seen, I think, the group evolve into a back 4 again. We've added a couple of players. I think the dimensions of the group are very good, and you've seen a slightly different look to the team. What I would say is this: if you want to succeed on the road, or if you want to do well in the playoffs, it's not necessarily about what shape or what players are on the field. It's the mentality to the game. So there are going to be times at the weekend where we'll be under pressure, and the good teams and the determined teams roll their sleeves up and they weather that storm. and they wait for a better moment. And the teams that are not going to succeed buckle under that pressure, and you find that they end up getting beat. So I think we've got all the right characters. I think we still have that drive and that ambition, plenty of ambition, and I would hope that we'll show just as good an away performance as we have done all year.
Thank you, Coach. We'll go to the Zoom now with Ben Wright, then Claudio Villalobos. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, Gary, I think everybody knows just what a good team LAFC are, obviously winning the Supporter Shields. You guys played a really tight game against them in your previous matchup. What can you take from that, and just kind of in general from watching them this season? What have you seen from them that's made them such a great side this year?
Well, I'm first time I've ever run into LAFC, and you're right. I thought it was a tight game. If I remember rightly, it was actually our third game in a week. It was a tough schedule that we were in. That's taking nothing away from their away win. What I can take away from it, when you're running to some of these guys up close, your Arangos and Velas and Acostas and many other guys in a hugely talented group, you see some of the finer details of quality in their game. And the reason that they're champions, and very good champions, is because over a consistent period they've been able to keep themselves at that level, and that level is a tremendously good one. So therefore, we need to make sure that we're at our very best without the ball, and we show all of the structural discipline that we have done in the past. But we're also going to have to give them a little bit of a bloody nose every now and then, and show what we're about going forward, because they do commit players. They are very, very confident and have every right to be, but they are vulnerable in transition, and I think those are one or two of the areas that we might just be able to take a little bit of advantage of.
Thank you, Coach. Next we'll go to Claudio and then Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Claudio.
Thank you, Matt. Coach, it might sound like a follow-up to Ben's question, but when you look at the Nashville and what the team has to do with this game, which is win first and foremost, and then wait to see what happens to LA Galaxy on the other game. Obviously, that means that the team has to go look for that game, go look for those goals, try to score. And at the same time, we're talking about a team that has goal differential of 29 in favor. How do you tactically manage to push ahead against a team like could score against you anytime?
Well, that's always the toughest question in any match that you play. Is taking advantage of opportunities that come your way. There may not be many, so we would need to be clinical. I'm not expecting a glut of chances against a side like this. So, number one, when you get your chance, you've got to take it. Number two, as I've said, we've got to make sure that as a group, we show all of the endeavour that we have done in the past, and maybe at times frustrate this talented team. But I think there will be moments in the game that will obviously heavily weigh into the way the momentum of the game goes. We're very, very capable, and we've shown that away from home we can manage the ball well. We do have good outlets, and we've got players that can actually really take control of any game that we're in. Those moments are going to be just as important. What we certainly don't need are LA in the confident place that they're in, taking control, managing the ball for long periods, and the game getting away from us in a possessional sense. So there are fine lines, but the guys have got a good plan of action. I think we're in a good place. You can imagine that they're positive. They feel as though this is a great opportunity. If we've got any aspirations whatsoever of bringing silverware back to this club this year alone, then we're going to have to play LA again probably. So there's a lot to be taken from this game, whatever way the game goes.
Thank you, Coach. Next we'll go to Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Tim.
Hey Gary, you mentioned a little bit about LAFC's style there, but stylistically, especially because Houston got 2 quick ones and then sat back for the rest of the game, it's probably not a much more jarring week-to-week change than you could possibly expect. How do you manage that with the guys who obviously didn't mount the full comeback on Sunday, but how do you manage it and say, okay, our mindset here has to be a little bit different. We are going to have the transition opportunities that we didn't have last week.
Yeah, I think there's a number of guys in the group that have either run into LA before. Obviously, in Walker's case, he's been there. He's got a good idea of the environment, of the team. Listen, this is, I can't say it any more times, this is a very, very good team. I suspect there's very little concern about us coming into town, and they'll be thinking very much about what the playoffs look like. Steve will be, working out what players need games, minutes, what players don't, whether he wants to play the very best team to keep some rhythm. I have no idea. So to that degree, we certainly have to worry about ourselves, how we're going to go about our business, how we take ourselves into the playoffs. And to your point, I think a game where, their confidence and belief will certainly make the game a very exciting one, a very open one, and that can end up one or two ways. They can obviously be very dominant and more than capable of scoring multiple goals, or they can leave themselves a tad vulnerable. And in those instances, we've got to be good enough, sensible enough, and structured enough to really try and make those situations count and put them to the sword.
We'll wrap up today's availability with Coach with Drake Hills. Go ahead, Drake.
Yeah, Coach, that game against LA at home was, I think it was July. How much of that have you taken a look at in terms of how you want your team to line up in that game? Obviously, that point in the season for you guys was a lot about giving gifts away, was the phrase that you used, and minimizing that. How much of that have you taken in terms of preparation for this game, and if at all, have you considered what points you want to emphasize because of that game going into Sunday?
Yeah, for sure. I think when you run into teams, whatever group that is, there's always something to be taken away from them in any given season because personnel changes, etc. And there are definitely areas of their game, as I've said, that I thought were far more positive and effective than maybe I'd seen on tape or on TV. So you see those individuals up close and their capabilities. We have to make sure that the plan that we've got in place, and we do have a plan, is executed to the best possible degree. Sometimes, it will be a moment of brilliance, which is where you hope your front line and your forward line come into play, and of course a high level of reliability against this calibre of group, and of course the more capable that a front line or an attacking group is, and they don't come much more capable in the front line we're probably going to run into. The less opportunity you get for making an error, a little mistake can be the difference between staying in a game, staying in front in a game, or being deflated and all of a sudden they're back on their front foot, and it can obviously cause some problems. So there's a lot of different boxes to tick, but it will be I'm sure an exciting game. They've done their job in the season, and I'll be congratulating Steve on his success. But we still have plenty to prove. So this won't be. It certainly won't be a cakewalk for anyone.
Podium with Nashville SC defender Jack Maher. Jack, approaching 50 career matches in MLS play. Feels like you just joined us. Can you give us some thoughts on that milestone for you?
Yeah, it's been a pretty quick 3 years. I just think a lot of it goes back to the club and the environment that I'm in. Being able to not only have the confidence in myself, but my teammates, the front office, Gary, the rest of the coaching staff, for them to have entrusted me with having the opportunity now close to 50 times, I think just speaks volume to the club as a whole and sort of what we can continue to do moving forward. So I'm grateful.
Yeah, Jack, just wondering how you guys prepare for this game. Obviously, the last time you guys faced LAFC was in July, middle of the season. Obviously went down early and went behind. How much of that has taken into account with how you guys prepared, or has it been more about how you guys have been playing recently in terms of what you guys want to do on Sunday?
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that we plan is more so on us. We like to focus on how we can improve from game to game, and I think we've been on a good run as of late. And I mean, we can't discount the fact that they have incredible players, and this is a team that is gifted with incredible talent, a lot of depth. And at the end of the day, we aren't necessarily sure who's going to be sort of their attacking pieces. And so, yeah, it's kind of difficult to plan for them, but a lot of the stuff that we do is centered around us and what gives us the best opportunity to get a result and really continue a really good momentum going into the playoffs.
Here's a follow-up. What do you think defensively it gives you guys the best opportunity at LAFC on decision day? Obviously, with the chance to go to top 4, but obviously could slide down to 7 in terms of playoffs.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really need to focus on, especially in this game, with the attacking talent that they have, is staying compact. It's one of the things that we've been really, really good at for the past almost 3 years now. Just keeping our lines really close together, whether it's the distance between our back line and our midfield, or our back line all the way up to the strikers. Being able to stay really compact, making play aerially with the center backs and defenders that we have. We're very confident we can win just about every single ball in the air, and so that's going to be something that we really focus on, and just being able to communicate, because they're going to have a lot of fans. It's going to be a rocking environment, and we're really looking forward to the task at hand.
Thank you, Drake. Thank you, Jack. We'll go to the Zoom. We'll start with Tim Sullivan, then Claudio Villalobos. Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, Jack, I know you guys are going to prepare for every game like it's the most important game of the year or whatever, but does it change the way you can prepare, first of all, knowing that LAFC doesn't really need anything out of the game results-wise, and secondly, I guess because of that, not knowing necessarily which of their personnel you will end up seeing?
Yeah, not at all. This game is extremely important for us, and I think that not only I think it's something that we necessarily don't focus on what LAFC has to gain from the result, doesn't have to gain from the result. It's all about, you know what, we get a really good result here, we're going to have a lot more confidence going into the postseason. And whether it's a home game, whether it's a road game, really doesn't matter. But being able to lay a good foundation and have good confidence from this game, I mean, it's a really big game for us.
Go ahead, Claudio.
Jack, when you hear Matt stating that you have 50 is going to be for 50 game, it seems like ages from that time when the front office and some fans went to your house, signed you up. It was a fun day for sure. But I mean, when you look at that and say, okay, 50 games, that's a lot of games. But then you go back and look at the dashboard column,
Yeah.
438. And you see that it's a long way to go, perhaps, especially because you're young. But my question goes like this. When a team like Nashville, which in 3 years has accomplished a lot, for sure, it seems like this is a year when even the position on the standings, it doesn't really show what you guys have been able to do. And there's much to be accomplished still. But how do you see this team going forward, especially as you grow up as a professional soccer player?
Yeah, I think that the big thing for us is that we're always competing for championships. Whether it's game one, whether it's a potential playoff game, every single game that we go into, we're going to have the mindset that we're going to play it like it is a championship game. And I think being able to have that mindset and that mentality has really strengthened the group. And that's something that we talk about. It's just so important. And so this is sort of hopefully my 50th game if I get the opportunity, and it's just one of those that whether it was game 1 or whether it's game 50, the mindset and the culture that we have is that, you know what, this is a playoff game. This game means the world to us, and who knows, like, we're just going to play it like it's a playoff game, and that's sort of the mindset that we have to win championships every single day in what we do.
Thank you, Jack. We'll wrap up today's session with Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Tim.
Jack, LAFC has added a ton of guys over the course of this year. When they played you guys, it was actually the debut for Gareth Bale and Giorgio Chiellini. How have you seen their team change over the course of the season? Have you kept an eye on what might be different from last time you guys saw them?
Yeah, I mean, they're an incredibly fun team to watch. And they got pieces all across the board. From player 1 to player 30, they got some really talented guys. And so I've certainly paid attention to them, but it's really not going to dictate how we play, because at the end of the day, the fundamentals that we've been displaying for this last run, I think it's really going to serve us well going there, because we're certainly confident that we can get the job done, and they have incredibly talented players, but really they just focus on ourselves.